Chapter 1. The crowd around me was a blur, voices blending into a distant hum. Blood, thick and dark, pooled beneath me as I lay on the cold ground. A chunk of iron was buried deep in my body, the sharp pain a constant reminder that this wasn't some nightmare. I was living it. An ambulance sped past, lights flashing, siren wailing. I reached out, desperate to grab hold of someone, but my hand closed around nothing. Inside the ambulance I saw him, my husband. He was holding another woman close, his face etched with worry and pain. But not for me. You're so clumsy. What would you do without me? Lily had laughed, playfully sticking out her tongue. But you'll always be there to take care of me, right? There was a faint scar on her wrist, almost healed now. And that's when it hit me, I wasn't part of this world anymore. Just that morning, I had asked him if he could come with me to my doctor's appointment. He had barely looked up from his phone. Sarah, you know how important my job is. I can't just leave. Do you have any idea how many lives depend on me being there? I swallowed my frustration, forcing a smile. I knew my role. The supportive wife who never complained, who never asked for more than he could give. He's the best ER doctor in the city, I reminded myself. I should be proud. I should never be the one to hold him back. I don't even know how many times I've gone to these appointments alone now. The baby was getting heavier by the day and my feet were swollen and aching. The hospital was packed and I moved carefully, afraid someone might bump into me and hurt the baby. What used to be quick and easy checkups now felt like marathons, each one dragging on longer than the last. On the way home, the car suddenly spun out of control. When I came to, I was lying on the pavement, strangers gathering around me, calling for help. Blood was everywhere and I could feel my consciousness slipping. My hands shook as I dialed his number. This baby was our first. Our dream, the future we'd imagined together. Do you think the baby will look more like you or me? He'd asked me once, his voice soft with excitement. When they're old enough to date, I'm going to tell them all the embarrassing stories of how we fell in love. I teased, laughing at the thought. The phone rang. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. On the third try, someone finally picked up. Lily's voice, sweet and bright, came through the line. Ethan's a little busy right now, he's helping bandage me up. Can I take a message? I thought back to our wedding day when he'd held his phone up with a smile. Hi love, he'd said, you know how crazy my job is. But I've set a special ringtone just for you, so no matter what, I'll always know when you're calling. I never called him during work. I didn't want to be a distraction. But now, even though he knew it was me, it didn't matter anymore. With the last bit of strength I had, I whispered, I've been in an accident. But before I could finish, his voice cut through, sharp and impatient. How many times do I have to tell you? There's nothing going on with Lily, she's just a patient. Do you even understand what I do? Sarah, not some petty argument over jealousy. Sarah, what happened to you? You used to understand me, support my work. And then the line went dead. I heard the murmurs of people around me. The closest ambulance just got sent to Maplewood Heights. Someone there apparently tried to slit their wrists. What is going on today? It's one thing after another. Maplewood Heights. That's where Lily lives. It's not even close to here. There's no way they should have sent an ambulance from this area. I watched them floating invisibly on the edges of their world as they whispered soft words to each other, completely wrapped up in their own romance. Ethan, I'm so glad you got here when you did. I don't know what I would have done without you, Lily said, her voice sweet and full of relief. Ethan reached out and gently brushed her hair back, his eyes filled with affection. Honestly, I don't know what to do with you. You're a grown woman, and you still manage to hurt yourself just making dinner. Lily blinked up at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I just wanted to surprise you with something special. You work so hard, and Sarah, she knows that. But she still makes you take care of her all the time. Ethan's expression softened even more. You silly girl. You're terrified of getting hurt, but you still tried to cook for me. Lily stood on her toes, leaning closer. Just kiss me and I'll forget all about the pain. For you, I'd do it all over again, no matter how much it hurts. In the back of the ambulance, they clung to each other, lost in a kiss that seemed to make the world around them disappear. That kiss brought back memories of our first one. We were so young, so clueless. I remember us huddling over our phones, Googling how to kiss properly. I had braces back then and they snagged on his lip, drawing blood. We just stood there laughing like idiots at how awkward we were. Now his phone screen was lit up with our last conversation. "Can you stop with the paranoia? It's like you won't be happy until I quit my job," he texted me. It had been late at night about a week ago. I'd woken up with a sharp pain in my stomach and tried to wake him, thinking we should go to the hospital. No matter how much I shook him, he wouldn't wake up. Then his phone rang and he sat up instantly. The hospital needed him. I took that moment to ask if he could take me to the hospital on the way. He pulled away from me, irritated. "We just had a checkup and everything was fine. This is all in your head. Do you realize how much you're overreacting? You're wasting everyone's time with your constant worrying." So I called a taxi and went to the hospital alone. The doctor told me that if I'd come any later, we might have lost the baby. When I told Ethan, his response was, "Stop stressing so much. That's better than any medicine. If anything happens to the baby, it'll be because you're always so paranoid." Not long after, Lily updated her social media. "I'm tired of being the girl. I want to be your wife." At the time, I didn't think much of it. Now everything made perfect sense. Chapter 3. The phone rang again. The hospital was calling Ethan, telling him about a nearby car accident, and urging him to respond immediately. "What? Aren't there any other ambulances? I've got a patient here," Ethan snapped. The voice on the other end sounded annoyed. "Everyone else is busy saving lives. Unlike you taking a joyride with a pretty girl." Huh. Ethan's brow furrowed. "Lives are lives. It doesn't matter who it is. We're supposed to help. How can you even say that?" The voice on the other end let out a bitter laugh. "Sure, but did it really require you to take a detour? Next time you want to play the hero for your little affair, don't use the hospital's resources. The accident victim is a pregnant woman, Ethan. If you don't get there soon, it's going to be 2 lives lost." The last words were nearly shouted through the phone. Ethan's face darkened. "Watch your tone." Lily tugged at his sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. "It's my fault. If I hadn't hurt myself, none of this would have happened." He sighed softly, his expression easing. "I'm taking you with me. Don't worry, I can handle this." From the other end of the line, I could faintly hear a mocking chuckle. "If it weren't for the fact that lives are at stake, I wouldn't care about your little drama. How someone like you became head of the department is beyond me." The ambulance turned, heading back toward the scene of my accident. Outside, I lay on the cold pavement, my body still warm but lifeless. 2 lives were lost in an instant. Inside, Ethan and Lily held each other, reluctant to let go. Suddenly, Lily seemed to remember something. "Wait, the accident, a pregnant woman. Could it be Sarah? When she called earlier, she said something about..." Ethan scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. "Sarah? Please. What could have happened to her? She's just sitting at home watching those ridiculous romance dramas, filling her head with nonsense. She even picked a fight with me the other day, saying she never wanted to see me again." Lily's eyes gleamed with what looked like concern, but her lips curled into a faint smile. "It's really unfair of her to make you feel guilty when you already work so hard. But I get it," she continued. "If my husband had another woman around him, I'd be anxious too. But I can't help it. I'm drawn to you. I didn't mean to make things worse between you two." Ethan pulled her even closer, his tone gentle. "Don't be silly. It's not your fault. Pregnant women get like that. Overly emotional. Sarah's just being irrational." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Besides, she hasn't exactly been able to meet my needs lately. It's only fair she understands that." His tone hardened. "I haven't done anything wrong. She has no right to keep nagging me like this." Lily nestled herself deeper into his embrace, her voice soft. "As long as I can stay beside you, nothing else matters." Watching them, I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. I doubled over, retching, dry heaving. Who knew even the ghost could feel this sick? Chapter 4. Ethan spent a few moments soothing her, his voice soft and measured, before picking up his phone. He stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, typing and deleting. After a few tries, he finally sent a message. "You mentioned you have a checkup tomorrow. How about I come with you?" I used to know how busy he was, and every time he sent a message, I'd respond almost immediately. It always felt like a tiny victory, a moment to connect in the middle of his hectic schedule. But this time he waited, and no reply came. Normally, I would have been thrilled, practically jumping out of my skin as I texted back something like, "You're the best. I can't wait to see you. Then I'd spend the rest of the day counting the hours until he walked through the door. Sensing something was wrong, he typed another message. All right, don't be upset. Work has been hectic and I've neglected you. I'll make it up to you in the coming days. With one hand stroking Lily's back and the other trying to smooth things over with me, I wondered how many times he had done this. His love. It was cheaper than I ever wanted to believe. By the time the ambulance arrived, a crowd had already gathered, buzzing with impatience. Why did it take so long for them to get here? Isn't there some kind of response time rule? Someone muttered. I heard they had to detour because some girl at Maplewood Heights tried to hurt herself, another added. That's what caused the delay. Wait, you mean that young woman? She didn't look like she had any problems at all. She was totally fine the last time I saw her. Lily was practically skipping as she followed behind Ethan, her energy radiating off her in waves. She didn't seem to care that they were in the middle of a crisis. Is he seriously bringing someone with him on a call? This is an emergency, not a trip. Someone in the crowd scoffed. Ethan glanced at Lily and then turned to address the crowd. This young lady was also in a critical situation earlier, so please don't question our professionalism. He is Dr. Ethan. We live in the same neighborhood. He's a very dedicated doctor. Please don't spread false rumors. The murmurs quieted, but the tension in the air remained thick. A guy holding his phone live streaming the scene couldn't resist reading a comment aloud. Professionalism? More like a soap opera. Isn't this the 31st time she's called an ambulance this month? What a joke. Doctors like him are a disgrace to the profession. Another comment flashed on his screen and the guy smirked as he read it. I heard someone filed a complaint about him chatting with his wife during work hours. Turns out he was cheating. Poor woman, I feel bad for her. Ethan's fists clenched, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he knelt down to assess the scene. The body on the ground was barely recognizable, the face disfigured by the impact of metal debris. But something in the way Ethan froze told me he knew exactly who it was. His eyes darkened, a flicker of realization crossing his face. Chapter 5. Is this guy for real? We're in the middle of an emergency and he's just standing there, spacing out. Someone muttered nearby. And bringing his mistress along on a call? What kind of doctor does that? Another voice chimed in, dripping with disdain. It felt like everyone around us knew about Ethan's affair. Everyone but him was still pretending nothing was wrong. Ethan just stood there, staring at my body, mumbling under his breath. No, this can't be. She's supposed to be at home. Lily, clumsy as ever, tripped, and her hand landed on the heavy metal debris scattered across the scene. My body on the ground bled more, the dark red pooling beneath it. Ethan snapped out of his daze and rushed to Lily's side, his face tight with irritation. What are you doing? You need to be more careful. Lily blinked up at him, her eyes filling with tears. I was just trying to help. I thought you might need help moving it. Don't be mad at me, please. Does this guy even know what he's doing? You can't just touch stuff in a scene like this. Is he trying to save lives or make things worse? God help us if doctors like him are the ones treating us. We're all doomed. And who's this girl anyway? A scratch on her wrist and they send an ambulance? What a waste. Ethan stepped in front of Lily, shielding her from the crowd's growing anger. His voice, though tight, was steady. I don't know how these rumors got out, but emergency medicine is a serious profession. Every decision we make is based on careful consideration. I won't stand by while people question that. In critical situations, everyone is equal. If there's a need, we respond. That's our duty. Watching him now, I couldn't help but think back to the boy I met in college. The one who swore he'd never let me down. We were each other's first love, stumbling our way through the awkwardness of young romance. And after graduation, when life finally settled, we thought we had it all. I still remember him laughing at the romance novels I used to read, saying, people only start looking for someone else when they're not really in love. Every morning he'd wake up, pull me close, and whisper how lucky he was to wake up next to the woman he loved. The day I told him I was pregnant, he was over the moon. He spent the entire day grinning, saying, how did I get so lucky? What did I do to deserve this? But somewhere along the way something shifted. He got busier. He'd leave before dawn and sometimes wouldn't come home until after dark. Even when he was home, he'd barely sit down before his phone buzzed and he'd get that distant, distracted look. That little smile would creep up on his face, the kind that told me he wasn't really there with me. I asked him about it once and he brushed me off, saying I was being paranoid. Come on, he'd say, we're so in love. How could you even think I'd cheat on you? But now, standing here watching him defend himself in front of a crowd, it was clear. Something had broken between us a long time ago and I had just been too blind to see it. Chapter 6. At some point, Lily's name started coming up in every conversation. You know, Lily's got some real guts. Climbed right up there without a second thought. You don't see that kind of bravery every day. Can you believe it? She's a grown woman and she still can't cook. It didn't matter what we were discussing. Somehow the conversation always found its way back to Lily. We argued about it more times than I can count, but he always dismissed my concerns. Come on, she's just a young woman trying to make it on her own in the city. Can you be a little more open-minded? Pregnancy brain is real, huh? You're overthinking everything these days. You're home all day with nothing to do while I'm working my ass off. Can't you just give me a break? But why was it that the man who used to complain about how exhausting work was, how there was nothing exciting in life, suddenly had time to snap pictures of every little thing and share them with other people? He'd never done that with me. Turns out he wasn't incapable of enjoying life, he just hadn't found the right person to enjoy it with. So what did that make all our years together? I remember the first time I visited his family home. His mother was excited, saying she was going to the market to buy fresh ingredients and make a big dinner to welcome me. But hours passed and she still hadn't come back. It was already dark when the phone call came. The police said she'd been in an accident on her way home. She didn't make it. What seemed like an ordinary day, a brief goodbye, turned into something final. He crumbled to the floor, hitting himself over and over, blaming himself for not going with her, for letting her go out alone. The day we went to collect her body, he held me all night, whispering, "You're all I have left." After that, he couldn't bear to let me out of his sight. Mom's gone. I can't lose you too. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Back then, his love felt so real, so raw. But even the deepest love can fade with time, can't it? Now, several years later, he wraps his arms around another woman and complains that I'm boring, that all I do is sit around the house with no sense of fun or adventure. I can't help but wonder, when did the bright, hopeful boy I fell in love with turn into this? When did he start to change little by little into someone I barely recognize? What hurts more? The fact that he betrayed our love, or that he abandoned his own dreams along the way? I passed away just a few minutes ago, but the truth is, part of Ethan had faded long before that. In some quiet, forgotten moment when the weight of life became too much for him to bear. Ethan still stood there in the middle of the crowd, trying to hold himself together, passionately talking about his beliefs and his ideals. "Give me a break," someone muttered. "How about learning to be a decent person before preaching about ideals? If you can't get that right, you're just degrading the profession." Is this the first time we've seen a doctor take an ambulance out with his mistress? Where's the hospital that allows this? I'm filing a complaint. A doctor like that shouldn't be allowed to treat anyone. Chapter 7. Comments floated past, giving me plenty of information. It turned out this wasn't the first time. Over the past few months, Lily frequently called for an ambulance. The first time was a real emergency, but after that, it became a game between them. The emergency department staff had long been fed up and blacklisted her address. So she called Ethan's private number. After all, he was the head doctor and his subordinates couldn't refuse. As soon as the live stream started, people flooded the chat with their grievances. In the past month, she had staged accidents almost every other day. Choking on water, dropping furniture on her foot, cutting her hand while cooking. Various reasons used repeatedly. Strangely, Ethan always appeared in a hurry, deeply concerned, and always with an ambulance. I've never seen anything like this. Does he think the hospital is his personal property? Well, you can't blame him. If she gets hurt that badly, it's better to call an ambulance. Otherwise, by the time she walks to the hospital, she might as well have healed. I can't stand these lovey-dovey couples. The woman on the ground is the one who truly needs help. And you, doctor, instead of saving lives, you're here spouting nonsense about ideals. Is that woman not tragic enough? Ethan looked down at the body on the ground. Although he had been there for some time, he hadn't truly examined it. No one knew I was already gone. The crowd grew larger and louder, criticizing him once they learned the truth. Knowing it was futile to argue, he bent down to continue the examination. Suddenly, Lily screamed and slowly collapsed. Ethan quickly caught her, turned, and rushed to the ambulance. I have a patient who has fainted here. Please send another team for the car accident. When you're beyond exasperated, you can't help but laugh. In his eyes, the woman on the ground was severely injured and urgently needed help. But because Lily fainted, he left immediately? And Lily wasn't even really unconscious. When he picked her up, I saw her squinting at the prenatal checkup slip I had just gotten from the hospital. If Ethan had paid a bit more attention, he would have realized the woman on the ground was his pregnant wife. But his mind was filled with Lily, his worry and anxiety seemingly genuine. Years of emotions discarded so easily. The ideals he once held dear cast aside. Was Lily really that important? Chapter 8. Lily lay on the hospital bed looking small and fragile. Ethan sat by her side, scrolling through their chat history. He used to complain about his monotonous life, saying there was nothing to talk about. So I would always start conversations, often sending long messages to which he would reply briefly. Sometimes he would respond after a few minutes, sometimes hours later. Occasionally it would take a day or two and he would reply when I had already moved on to another topic. The further he scrolled, the more panicked he became. Sarah, what are you doing? Please reply if you see this. I just wanted to ask if you want to have dinner together tonight. In the past, I would have been thrilled, pretending to be annoyed, teasing him for finally thinking of me. But now I had nothing to say. Lily couldn't pretend to sleep any longer. She groaned and slowly opened her eyes. Ethan, waking up to see you here makes me so happy. Ethan seemed not to hear her. Seeing no response from me, he started calling, but no one answered. Lily reached out to hug him, but he pushed her away forcefully. Tears welled in her eyes. Did I do something wrong? I didn't mean to. But you're a patient now. You need to rest. Leaving that remark, Ethan hurried out of the room. Lily propped herself up in bed, her eyes cold. He kept calling, first every few minutes, then holding down the dial button. This scenario was too familiar. Sometimes when I unknowingly upset him, he would disappear. I told you I had important work to do. Stop bothering me. You know what you did. Do you not know what kind of person you are? If you didn't mean it, why would you say it? Now our roles were reversed. He finally knew the anxiety of not being able to reach someone. But what did it matter? Once someone is gone, they don't come back. Late justice is no justice. On his 20th call, someone finally answered. Is this Sarah's family? This is the traffic police. There was an accident this morning. Please come to identify the body. Ethan shook his head, repeating, No, it can't be. It's not her. Lily, hearing the commotion, came out of the room, joy evident on her face. Did something happen to Sarah? Ethan didn't respond, running out of the hospital with his phone, muttering, No. She promised me. Lily followed, showing no signs of weakness. Chapter 9. A cold, lifeless machine covered with a white sheet. All the memories of a person reduced to nothing. Ethan gently lifted the sheet, trembling uncontrollably. Lily stepped forward and pulled the sheet away, feigning fear but with a hint of a smile. Oh my, it's so scary. How did Sarah end up like this? There's hardly a complete body left. Ethan stared at the body, stepping back, his face twisted in disbelief. No. How could this happen? Voices from outside drifted in. There was an accident at the street corner this morning. I heard the nearest ambulance was diverted, missing the critical rescue window. Yeah, although another ambulance arrived later, it left quickly. By the time we got there, both the mother and baby couldn't be saved. Her husband must be devastated. Yes, how devastated he must be. But what was my husband doing then? He was in an ambulance, holding another woman intimately. Ethan suddenly seemed to remember what he had done. He looked at his hands, unable to believe it. It's my fault. I killed Sarah. If I hadn't taken the ambulance to Area A, if I had paid more attention at the scene. I had listened to her this morning and gone with her for the checkup. I hadn't betrayed her. He fell to his knees, hitting his head with his hands, crying uncontrollably. Why? She was all I had left. Why did she have to leave me too? Lily hugged him, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Ethan, you still have me. I'll always be by your side. And now that she's gone, you don't have to worry about asking for a divorce. And as for the baby, feel this, our baby can't wait to come out. Lily guided Ethan's hand to her belly, but he pushed her away forcefully. It's you. You ruined everything. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have betrayed her. You can't compare to Sarah. You're not even half of what she was. You don't deserve to carry my child." Lily fell to the ground, staring blankly. "What are you talking about?" Blood trailed down her legs, but she seemed unaware. Ethan clung to my body, whispering, "Sarah, why are you lying here? This bed is so hard. You never liked staying out overnight. Let me take you home. Remember our first trip? You said you couldn't sleep on strange beds and pulled an all-nighter with me. The next day we had huge dark circles and kids on the street called us the panda couple, begging for a photo." Ethan gazed at my lifeless body, his eyes brimming with tears. Lily crawled to Ethan's feet, leaving a trail of blood behind her. "Look, this is our baby. You always loved children, didn't you? You promised to be with me forever, didn't you?" Ethan kicked Lily away, clutching my body, trying to carry me out. Fortunately, the staff intervened and stopped him. Chapter 10. I followed him as he wandered aimlessly through the streets until late at night. Eventually, he walked into a cafe. I remembered this place. It was where we had our first date. That day, he stood there with bright red ears, trying to act cool as he asked if I would be his girlfriend. The first time I was too stunned to respond. The second time he asked again, his voice trembling and words jumbled. I laughed and said, "Sure, you can be my girlfriend. And I'll find myself a boyfriend too. Perfect pairing." He realized his mistake and felt so embarrassed. I never let him forget that moment. He opened the cafe door and headed straight to the message wall. The notes on the wall were usually replaced periodically, but because we frequented the place and were friendly with the owner, our messages remained. Ethan picked up one of my old notes. "Look, you wrote here that Sarah and Ethan would be together forever. How can you break that promise? And this one, you always wanted to travel to Sea Island. I was too busy with work, but now I'll take you. How about that?" He flipped through note after note, each one holding a memory. As he recounted our history, he started to sob uncontrollably. Seemed like he really did love me. But then I noticed a note in someone else's handwriting next to mine. "Ethan will always belong to me alone." It was signed by Lily. So he was sentimental after all. He kept coming back to this place even with his new lover. Watching him cry against the wall, I couldn't help but find it all very ironic. Soon enough, Lily's call came in. That ringtone, once a source of endless anxiety for me, was now ignored as he simply declined the call and blocked her number. What is love, really? I still don't know. We met in college and went from being students to a married couple. After graduation, we settled into stable careers. People envied us, saying our happiness was like a fairy tale. But in the critical moments, he betrayed me, throwing away his work and ideals for Lily. Now he says he loves me. Chapter 11. Ethan retraced our old routes, wandering the streets until late at night before finally returning home. As he opened the door, Lily jumped into his arms. "Ethan, I've been waiting for you all night. Why are you so late?" She leaned in for a kiss, only to be shoved away by Ethan. "This is Sarah's home. What are you doing here?" Lily looked hurt, frowning. "We used to do this all the time. Didn't you say you loved it when I greeted you like this?" I silently smirked. No wonder he always suggested I visit my parents, saying they must miss me. Seeing he wasn't responding, Lily tried again. "The doctor said, our baby is gone. But it's okay. I didn't want a baby taking your love from me. You'll always be mine alone." Ethan's gaze swept over her, his eyes cold. "You're not welcome here. Leave." Lily's face twisted in anger. "I'm giving you one last chance to think about what you're saying." Ethan remained unmoved. "I've made myself clear. Leave." Lily slapped him hard. "You used to say you couldn't marry me because of her. Now she's gone and you're still acting up." Ethan turned sharply, glaring at her. "You did this." Lily lifted her chin defiantly. "Yes, I tampered with her car. I didn't expect her to die so horribly, but it seems even fate didn't favor her." Ethan pointed at her, struggling for words. "You? What about me? You were there. If you had stayed a bit longer, maybe you could have saved her. But you just glanced at her and left with me when I fainted. It shows you didn't care. So why the tantrum now? When you unbuttoned my dress, you weren't loyal to her either. She's dead and now you regret it?" Lily's face was full of disdain as she continued her tirade. Ethan, enraged, lunged at her, his hands around her neck. "It's all your fault. You ruined everything. If it weren't for you, Sarah wouldn't have died and things wouldn't be like this. Lily's face turned red, her eyes rolling back, yet she still managed a crazed smile. In a swift move, she pulled out a knife and slashed at Ethan's face. The blade, gleaming under the light, was soon stained with blood as Ethan clutched his eyes, screaming in agony. "That cut is for making me go through so much pain." She continued to slash at him, each cut punctuated by her accusations. In the midst of her madness, I pieced together their story. About 6 months ago, Lily, fresh out of college, arrived in the city and was robbed at the station. The thief took her belongings and cut her, landing her in the hospital where she met Ethan. Ethan, seeing her as a young girl alone, took special care of her and they grew close. But when Lily found out Ethan was married, she backed off. Then one day, Ethan had a fight with me. Actually, it was more like I had unintentionally upset him again. He stormed out as he usually did, but that time he didn't go to the hospital. Instead, he went to Lily's apartment. The details from there are murky, but somehow they ended up entangled and Lily became pregnant with his child. In the past 6 months, she had multiple terminations. Ethan, now blinded and in excruciating pain, staggered around the house, lost and desperate. "No matter what, despite everything you've done to me, I still love you. You'll belong to me forever in this life. You said you wanted to marry me. Look, this is where we were. No, that's where our baby died." Lily's words grew increasingly disjointed, her mental state clearly unraveling. With a crazed expression, she pulled out a candle from the cabinet. "Sweetheart, Mommy and Daddy are here to celebrate your birthday. Don't be afraid. We're all here with you." Lily's face lit up with a deranged smile as she struck a match and ignited the candle. The room exploded into flames. In no time, firefighters arrived at the scene, discovering 2 charred bodies clinging together in the living room. After being discharged from the hospital, Lily had been hiding in my house, waiting for Ethan to come home. As soon as he entered the building, she turned on the gas. My soul felt lighter and lighter. In a daze, I saw the young man standing on the podium, eyes filled with determination. If only life could stay frozen at the moment we first met, how wonderful it would have been.